Guests arrive at the Crossroads Motel from the cornfield, not the highway. I've watched it happen a dozen times. Someone just walks out of the corn at dusk, covered in dirt and corn silk, confused about where they are, and checks in for the night. They never have cars. They never have luggage. Just themselves, looking lost and desperate. When I ask how they got here, they all say the same thing. I was walking through the corn, and I saw the lights. But the motel is 3 miles from the nearest road, surrounded by corn on all sides, and there's no path through the field. My name is Lyle Hartman, and I've been night clerk at the Crossroads for 6 weeks. The motel sits somewhere between Madrid and Slater, though if you asked me to point to it on a map, I couldn't. The address on my employment papers just says Highway 17 Junction, Rural Route 3. When I drive here, I take Highway 17 north from Ames until the GPS loses signal, then follow the gravel roads until I see the neon vacancy sign glowing pink through the corn rows. Yesterday, a man emerged from the corn carrying a suitcase from the 1950s. He was wearing a suit that looked vintage, and when he spoke, he had an accent I couldn't place. Old-fashioned, formal, like people talked in black and white movies. He asked for a room, paid with bills that had dates from 1952, and I watched those bills age and crumble into dust in my hand as I held them. When I asked him where he was coming from, he said, "Route 30. I was driving to Des Moines when my car broke down. I walked into the corn to look for help, and I've been walking for 3 days, or maybe 3 hours. Time feels wrong here." I checked the parking lot through the window. There were no cars from the 1950s. No cars at all except mine and my manager's. And when I turned back around, the man was gone. But I could see him through the window, walking back into the corn, and as he disappeared into the stalks, I saw others, dozens of them, all walking deeper into the field, all wearing clothes from different decades, all heading towards something I couldn't see. That's when Vera, the day manager, handed me the laminated card. She's been here since God knows when. Her hands shake when she pours coffee, and she wears cardigans even in July. The card had 6 rules typed on it in faded typewriter ink. "Read these," she said. "Follow them exactly. The guests need help getting where they're going, but if you break the rules, you'll end up walking with them." I looked at the rules. Then I looked at the corn, where shadows moved between the stalks, even though there was no wind. "What happens if I quit?" I asked. Vera smiled, but her eyes stayed empty. "No one quits the Crossroads, Lyle. You'll understand soon enough." The rules were simple enough, typed on yellowed paper that had been laminated so many times the edges were thick with plastic layers. Rule 1. Never ask guests their full names. They may not remember, and forcing them to remember causes distress. Rule 2. If a guest requests room 7, give them room 8 instead. Room 7 doesn't exist anymore. Rule 3. Between 2 a.m. and 2:30 a.m., stay behind the front desk. Do not go outside, even if someone calls for help. Rule 4. If you see someone standing at the edge of the cornfield facing away from the motel, do not call out to them. Rule 5. Keep the register book open at all times. If it closes on its own, reopen it immediately. Rule 6. If a guest asks, "How long have I been here?" answer, "As long as you need." Never give them actual dates. I read them twice while Vera watched me from across the lobby. The motel was small, just 12 rooms in an L shape around a parking lot that hadn't seen fresh asphalt since the Carter administration. The office smelled like burnt coffee and something else, something I couldn't name. Old paper, maybe. Or old grief. "Why can't I ask their names?" I said. Vera poured herself another cup of coffee. Her hands didn't shake this time, because some of them died before they had a chance to become anyone. Children mostly. They wander in sometimes, maybe 8 or 9 years old, wearing clothes from 40 years ago. You ask them their name and they just stand there trying to remember, and then they start crying. And then she trailed off, staring at her coffee. Just don't ask. I wanted to ask what happened after the crying, but something in her face stopped me. She looked tired. Not the kind of tired you get from working late. The kind that lives in your bones. What about room 7? There is no room 7. She said it flatly, like she was reading from a script. Count the doors yourself if you want. The numbers go 6, 8, 9. But sometimes guests remember room 7 from when they stayed here before, when they were alive. If they ask for it, give them 8. They won't notice. I glanced at the wall behind her where the room keys hung on brass hooks. She was right. No key for room 7. The hook was there, bent and tarnished, but empty. My shift started at 10 p.m. Vera left at 10:15. Her cardigan pulled tight around her shoulders, even though the office was warm. She paused at the door. "Lyle?" The half hour between 2 and 2:30. No matter what you hear out there, you stay inside. You understand? I nodded. She left. The first hour was quiet. I sat behind the desk and tried to make sense of the register book, a massive leather-bound ledger that must have weighed 20 pounds. The entries went back decades. Hundreds of names. None with last names, just first names and dates. Some dates were from last week. Some were from 1847. At 11:30, the door opened. A woman walked in. She was maybe 30, wearing a sundress that was popular in the early 2000s, the kind with spaghetti straps and a floral pattern. Her feet were bare, covered in dirt. She had corn silk in her hair. "Do you have a room?" Her voice was soft, I'm certain. "We do." I grabbed the key from the board. Room 3. "Just for tonight?" "I think so. I'm not sure how long." She looked past me at the window behind the desk, at the corn beyond the glass. "I was driving to Marshalltown to see my sister. Then the car just stopped, right there on Highway 30. I got out and started walking through the corn to find help, and I saw your lights. I wrote her name in the register, just Emily, no last name, per Rule 1, and handed her the key. She took it but didn't move toward the door. "How long have I been here?" she asked. "Rule 6. As long as you need," I said. She smiled, but it was sad. That's what the last person told me too. Back when I checked in the first time. Then she walked to room 3. I watched her through the window. She unlocked the door, stepped inside, and closed it. The lights in her room never turned on. I checked the register again. Her name was there, written in my handwriting. But above it, in faded ink, was another entry. Emily. August 14th, 2003. I looked at the calendar on the wall. October 2024. Outside, the corn rustled even though there was no wind. Between the stalks, I saw movement. Shadows walking parallel to the motel, heading deeper into the field. I counted 7 of them before I stopped counting. The phone on the desk rang. I picked it up. No one spoke, but I heard breathing. Then, faintly, a child's voice. "I can't find my mom." The line went dead. I set the phone down, looked at the rules, looked at the clock. 11:47 p.m. 2.5 hours until 2 a.m. Midnight came and went. I made fresh coffee in the pot behind the desk, the kind that comes in industrial-sized cans and tastes like aluminum. The office had a small television mounted in the corner, but it only showed static. I tried changing channels. Nothing but white noise and occasional flickers of what might have been faces. I left it on anyway. The static was better than the silence. At 12:43 a.m., the register book slammed shut. The sound made me jump. I stared at it for a moment. Just a book on a desk, closed now, the leather cover dark against the wood. Rule 5 echoed in my head. I reached over and opened it. The pages had changed. Before, the entries had been neat, chronological. Now they were scrambled, dates out of order, names written in different hands. Some entries were in pencil, some in fountain pen. One was in what looked like charcoal. I found Emily's name again, but this time there were 3 entries. Emily, August 14th, 2003. Emily, October 19th, 2024. Emily, June 2nd, 1987. The handwriting was different for each one. 3 different people had checked her in. Or she'd checked in 3 different times. I didn't know which was worse. I left the book open and weighted it down with the coffee can. At 1:15 a.m., someone knocked on the office door. Not the entrance door. The door that led to the supply closet behind the desk. 3 sharp raps. I froze. There shouldn't be anyone back there. The closet was tiny, barely large enough for cleaning supplies and a broken vacuum. No windows, no other exit. The knocking came again. 3 raps, evenly spaced. I thought about Rule 3, stay behind the desk between 2 and 2:30. It was only 1:15. The rule didn't apply yet. But something about the knocking felt wrong. Too patient, too measured. "Hello?" I called. No answer. Just silence. Then, after a long moment, 3 more knocks. I stood and walked to the closet door. Put my hand on the knob. The metal was cold. Colder than it should be. I turned it slowly and pulled the door open. The closet was empty. Just shelves with half-empty bottles of cleaning solution and a mop bucket. But the air inside was frigid. My breath came out in clouds. I could see frost forming on the metal shelving. On the back wall, someone had written in the frost, 2:17. I shut the door and backed away. Checked the clock. 1:18 a.m. 42 minutes. At 1:30, another guest arrived. I saw him through the window first. A young man, maybe 25, stumbling out of the corn like he'd been running. His shirt was torn. He had scratches on his arms, thin red lines that didn't bleed. When he pushed through the office door, he was breathing hard. "I need a room." He looked behind him, at the corn. "Please, I need to get inside." I grabbed a key. "Room 5. Are you okay?" "No." He took the key, hands shaking. "No, I'm not." I crashed my truck on Highway 17, rolled it 3 times. I remember the glass breaking, the way the sky kept spinning. Then I woke up in the corn and started walking. But there's something out there. Something following me. I looked past him, out the window. The corn was still. No wind, no movement. "Did you see what it was?" He shook his head. I heard it. Footsteps behind me, matching my pace exactly. When I ran, it ran. When I stopped, it stopped. But it never got closer. Like it was hurting me here. I wrote his name in the register. Just Thomas and today's date. But when I looked up, he was staring at the book, at the page, his face pale. "What's wrong?" "That's my handwriting," he whispered. He pointed at an entry 3 lines above his name. Thomas. September 9th, 1996. That's not possible. I was 7 years old in 1996. My family took a trip to Des Moines. We drove through here, through Madrid, My dad stopped at a motel because the car was overheating. I remember the corn. I remember the pink neon sign. He looked at me, and his eyes were wet. I got lost that night. Wandered into the corn. My parents found me an hour later, standing at the edge of the field, staring at nothing. I didn't remember leaving. I didn't remember how I got there. He touched the register, fingers hovering over the old entry. That's my handwriting. From when I was 7, but I don't remember writing it. I didn't know what to say. Rule 6 came to mind. Never give them dates. But he'd already seen the dates himself. Thomas took his key and walked to room 5. He locked the door behind him. Through the window, I saw him sit on the edge of the bed, head in his hands. The phone rang again. 1:47 a.m. I picked it up. This time, the child's voice was clearer. I can't find my mom. She went into the corn. Can you help me find her? Where are you? I asked. I'm in room 7. There is no room 7. Yes, there is. I'm here right now. It's dark and I can't find the door. Please help me. The line went dead. I set the phone down and looked at the room keys on the wall. The empty hook for room 7 was swaying slightly, like someone had just removed a key from it. At 1:52, the register slammed shut again. I opened it. The pages were blank now. Every entry, every name, gone. Just empty lines on yellowed paper. I grabbed a pen and started writing Emily's name back in, then Thomas's. But the ink wouldn't stick. It beaded up on the paper like water on wax. I left the book open anyway. At 1:58, I heard footsteps outside. Slow, shuffling steps in the parking lot. I looked through the window and saw a figure standing at the edge of the corn, facing away from the motel. They were wearing clothes I couldn't make out clearly, something dark, something that moved wrong in the dim light from the office. Rule 4. Do not call out to them. I stayed quiet, watched. The figure didn't move, just stood there, head tilted slightly, like they were listening to something in the corn. At 1:59, the lights flickered. At 2 a.m. exactly, the office door opened. No one was there, but I heard footsteps crossing the lobby. Slow, steady, heading toward the desk. I pressed myself against the back wall, remembering Rule 3. Stay behind the desk, don't go outside. The footsteps stopped in front of the desk. I could hear breathing. Someone was standing right there, on the other side of the counter, but I couldn't see them. Then, a woman's voice, soft and close. Do you have room 7? I swallowed hard. My throat was dry. Room 7 doesn't exist. I can give you room 8. Silence. The breathing continued. Then, room 8 will do. I reached for the key, hands trembling. When I set it on the counter, it vanished, just disappeared. And I heard footsteps again, walking away from the desk, across the lobby, out the door. Through the window, I saw the door to room 8 swing open. No one entered, but the lights inside turned on. The clock on the wall read 2:03 a.m., 27 minutes to go. If you like the stories, please hype the videos from a button like this just above the comment section. It helps the videos to get more reach and perform well. It would take just a few seconds and cost nothing, but would help the channel grow even faster. Thank you. At 2:08 a.m., I heard crying coming from the parking lot. A child, sobbing and broken, hitching gasps, the same voice from the phone. I pressed myself against the wall behind the desk and tried not to look at the window. Rule 3 said stay inside. Don't go outside, even if someone calls for help. But the crying got louder, more desperate. It sounded like a little boy, maybe 6 or 7 years old. "Please," the voice called. "Please, I can't find my mom. I'm scared." My hand moved toward the door handle. I stopped myself, pressed my palm flat against the wall instead, feeling the textured wallpaper under my fingers. The crying continued, circling the building now. I could track it by sound, moving from the parking lot toward the rooms, then back toward the office. "Is anyone there? Please help me." I closed my eyes, counted to 10. When I opened them, I looked at the register book. The pages were filling again, names appearing in real time like someone was writing them with invisible ink. But the names were all the same. William, 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 William. Dozens of entries. Same name. Different dates spanning 70 years. The crying stopped. I looked at the clock. 2:13 a.m., 17 minutes left. At 2:15, someone knocked on room 3's window. I heard it clearly. 3 taps, then silence, then 3 more. Emily's room. I moved to where I could see through the office window. Her curtains were drawn, but I could see a shadow behind them. Someone standing very still, pressed against the glass from inside. The knocking came again, but it wasn't coming from outside the window. It was coming from inside the room, someone knocking on the glass trying to get out. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. Then the curtains moved aside, and I saw Emily's face pressed against the window. Her eyes were wide, her mouth was open, but no sound came out. She was mouthing something, the same word, over and over. I couldn't read lips well, but after the 5th repetition, I understood. "Help." Then her face changed. The skin went gray, then translucent. I could see the bones underneath. She wasn't Emily anymore. She was something wearing Emily's face, and the face was slipping. I looked away, stared at the coffee pot instead. The coffee had turned black, thicker than it should be. When I got closer, I realized it wasn't coffee anymore. It was dirt. Wet dirt, packed into the pot like someone had scooped it from the cornfield. At 2:19, the supply closet door opened on its own. The cold air rushed out like a wave. My breath came up in thick clouds. I could see into the closet now. It was bigger than before, deeper. The back wall had receded into darkness, and I could hear something moving in that darkness. Footsteps. Multiple sets, walking toward me. I grabbed the door and tried to close it. It wouldn't budge. The handle was frozen solid, ice crystals forming on the metal. Through the gap, I saw movement. A hand reached out from the darkness, then another. Then a face. It was Vera, but wrong. Her skin was too pale, lips blue, eyes clouded white. She smiled at me with too many teeth. "Come help me with inventory, Lyle," she said. Her voice echoed like she was speaking from the bottom of a well. "We need to count the rooms. Need to make sure room 7 is still locked." "You left hours ago," I said. "Did I?" She tilted her head. The movement was jerky, like her neck had extra joints. "I don't remember leaving. I don't remember much of anything anymore. Just the corn. Just the walking. Do you know how long I've been walking, Lyle?" I pushed harder on the door. It moved an inch, 2 inches. The cold burned my hands, but I kept pushing. "Since 1920, Vera continued. "That's when I first checked in. That's when I first walked out of the corn. I thought I was alive then. Thought I was just a guest. But guests leave, Lyle. Guests move on. Employees stay." I slammed the door shut, locked it, put my back against it, and slid down to the floor. My hands were bright red from the cold, skin cracked and bleeding. I wrapped them in paper towels from the desk. At 2:23, the television changed. The static cleared, and I saw the parking lot, my parking lot, filmed from above. I could see all 12 rooms, the office, my truck parked near the entrance. But there were other cars too, dozens of them. Old cars from different eras, a Buick from the 50s, a wood-paneled station wagon from the 70s, a Plymouth with fins. They flickered in and out, there and not there. Then the camera angle shifted. I was looking at the cornfield now. From above, I could see patterns in the corn. Paths. Dozens of them, all leading to the motel from different directions. And on those paths, I saw them. The walkers. Hundreds of people moving through the corn, all heading toward the pink neon sign. The camera zoomed in on one figure, a man in a suit. The same man from yesterday, the one with the 1950s suitcase. He was walking in circles. The same circle, over and over, his feet tracing a groove in the dirt between the stalks. He'd been walking that same loop for 70 years. I turned the TV off. The screen went black, but I could still see my reflection in it. Except my reflection was wrong. In the glass, I was standing in the corn, not in the office. I was one of the walkers. At 2:27, all the room doors opened at once. I heard them, 12 doors, 12 metallic clicks, 12 hinges creaking. Through the window, I watched them swing open. The rooms were dark inside, but I could see movement in that darkness. Shapes gathering in doorways, standing at thresholds, waiting. The phone rang. I let it ring. It rang 7 times, then stopped. Then all 12 room phones started ringing. I could hear them through the walls, a chorus of electronic trills echoing across the parking lot. They rang and rang and rang. At 2:29, someone walked across the parking lot toward the office. I recognized the walk, the way she held her shoulders. It was Emily, but she was different now. Her sundress was torn. Corn silk threaded through her hair like a crown. Her feet left dark prints on the asphalt. Not dirt, but something wet and black. She reached the office door, put her hand on the glass, looked directly at me. "Thank you for checking me in," she said. Her voice was clear despite the closed door. I remember now. I remember the crash. I remember walking into the corn to find help. I remember seeing the lights and thinking I was saved. She smiled, but it was sad. I've been walking for 21 years, Lyle. Around and around trying to find the highway. But there is no highway. There's only the corn, and the corn only leads here. "I'm sorry," I said. "Don't be. At least I'm not alone anymore. None of us are. We walk together now. All of us who got lost. All of us who forgot which direction home was." She pressed her forehead against the glass. "You'll understand soon. When your shift ends and you try to leave. You'll get in your truck and drive toward Ames, but you'll end up in the corn. You always do. The roads out here are hungry." At 2:30 a.m. exactly, all the phones stopped ringing. Emily stepped away from the door, walked back to room 3, closed the door behind her. The other room doors closed too, one by one. Click, click, click. I looked at the clock. 2:31 a.m. The dangerous window had passed. I was still alive, still behind the desk, still breathing. I looked at my hands. The skin was healing, the cracks sealing themselves. Like it never happened. But I knew better. I felt it in my chest, a wrongness, a weight that hadn't been there before. Like something had shifted inside me during those 30 minutes. Like I'd crossed a threshold I didn't know existed. I pulled out my phone to call someone. My mom, maybe. my roommate back in Ames, anyone. But there was no signal. There never was, this far from town. I looked at the register book. My name was in it now, written in handwriting I didn't recognize. Lyle, October 19th, 2024. Below it, in the same hand, Lyle. October 19th, 2024. And below that, Lyle. October 19th, 2024. The same entry repeated 20 times down the page. At 3 a.m. I decided to check the rooms. I know it was stupid. The rules didn't say anything about staying in the office after 2:30, but they also didn't say it was safe to wander around. Still, I needed to move. Needed to do something other than stare at my name repeated over and over in the register, like a prayer or a curse. I grabbed the master keyring and stepped outside. The air was different, thicker. It tasted like minerals and wet earth. The parking lot stretched out before me, cracked asphalt gleaming under the pink neon. All 12 room doors were closed now, but I could hear sounds from inside them. Televisions playing static. Water running in sinks that should have been shut off. Someone humming a tune I almost recognized. I walked to room 3 first, Emily's room. I knocked. Housekeeping, just checking if everything's okay. No answer. I used the master key and pushed the door open. The room was empty, bed neatly made, curtains drawn. But the window was shattered from the inside, glass scattered across the carpet. Something had tried to get out, or something had gotten in. On the bathroom mirror, written in condensation, Highway 30, mile marker 127, August 14th, 2003. I pulled out my phone, still no signal, but I opened the Maps app anyway. It had cached some data from the last time I was in Ames. I zoomed in on Highway 30, scrolling east toward Marshalltown. Found mile marker 127. There was a small memorial marker on the side of the road. The app didn't show details, but I had driven past enough of them to know what they meant. Someone had died there. A cross or flowers left by family. Emily had told me she was driving to Marshalltown to see her sister when she crashed. I closed the app, left room 3. Room 5 was Thomas's. I knocked. This time, he answered. Yeah? Just checking in. Making sure you're okay. The door opened. Thomas stood there in the same torn shirt, same scratches on his arms. But his eyes were different, clearer, like he'd remembered something important. I looked it up, he said, holding up his phone. Unlike mine, his had signal. Full bars. September 9th, 1996. There was an accident on Highway 17. A family from Ames. Their 7-year-old son wandered away from the car while his dad was checking the engine. They found him an hour later, standing at the edge of a cornfield. No injuries. No memory of where he'd been. That was you. Yeah. But here's the thing. He showed me his phone screen. It was a news article, dated September 10th, 1996. The headline read, "Boy found after disappearing in Story County cornfield." Below it was a photo, a child's face blurred but recognizable, Thomas at 7 years old. But there was another article, dated June 18th, 2024. Man killed in single vehicle crash on Highway 17. I read the first paragraph. Thomas Brennan, 35, of Ames. Truck rolled 3 times. Pronounced dead at the scene. I looked up at him. He was reading over my shoulder. I died 4 months ago, he said quietly. I've been walking for 4 months. I just didn't know it until tonight. I'm sorry. He laughed, but it was hollow. Don't be. I feel more alive now than I did for years before the crash. Isn't that fucked up? I'm dead, but I can think clearly for the first time since I was 7. since the first time I got lost in the corn. What happened when you were 7? What did you see? The same thing I saw tonight. Footsteps behind me, something keeping pace, never getting closer. And at the end of the corn, I saw this place. The crossroads, the pink sign. I walked up to the office and a woman checked me in. She had gray hair and a cardigan. She gave me a room key and told me to rest. Vera. 30 years ago, she'd still been here, still checking people in. Then what? Then I woke up at the edge of the cornfield and my parents were calling my name. The motel was gone. Just corn. But I remembered the walk. I remembered the paths. He stepped closer. There are rules to the corn, Lyle. Patterns. If you walk them right, they take you where you need to go. But if you walk them wrong, you just loop forever. Where do you need to go? He looked past me, toward the cornfield. I don't know yet. But I think I'm close. I think that's why I can think clearly now. Why I remember. The corn brought me back here to finish something. I left him and moved to room 8. The door was ajar. I pushed it open slowly. The room was freezing. My breath formed clouds. Ice had grown across the walls in fractal patterns, spreading from the corners like veins. The bed was covered in frost. On the nightstand, someone had arranged objects in a careful line. A child's toy car, a woman's ring, a pair of eyeglasses, a driver's license from 1954, a faded Polaroid. I picked up the Polaroid. It showed a young woman standing in front of the Crossroads Motel. She was smiling. Behind her, I could see the pink neon sign and the corn. Written on the back, Vera, summer 1920. She looked exactly the same as she did now. Same gray hair, same cardigan, same tired eyes. I heard footsteps in the bathroom, slow, shuffling steps. Then the shower turned on. I could hear water hitting tile, but when I looked, there was no water. Just steam rising from the empty tub, forming shapes in the air. Faces. Dozens of them, appearing and dissolving in the mist. I backed out of the room and closed the door. At 3:45 a.m., I returned to the office. The register book had filled with more entries. I flipped through the pages, reading names and dates. Some entries were recent. Some were from before Iowa was even a state. I found one from 1834. Robert. Died on the prairie. Walked for 3 days. Found the lights. The lights. Everyone mentioned lights. The pink neon sign glowing through the corn. I went to the window and looked out at the sign. Vacancy. It flickered and buzzed, same as always. But now I noticed something else. The light had a range. It didn't illuminate the parking lot evenly. It created a circle. And beyond that circle, the darkness was absolute. The corn disappeared into it like it had been swallowed. But at the edge of the light, I saw them. The walkers, standing in a line just outside the glow, facing the motel. There were dozens of them now. Men in suits from the 30s, women in dresses from the 40s, children in clothes I couldn't date, a farmer in overalls, a businessman with a briefcase, a girl in a prom dress. They all stood perfectly still, watching. Then, as I watched, one of them stepped forward into the light. An older man, maybe 60, wearing a John Deere cap and a flannel shirt. He walked across the parking lot, moving stiffly like his joints had forgotten how to bend. He reached the office door. I opened it before he could knock. "Do you have a room?" he asked. His voice was rough, like he hadn't used it in a long time. "We do." I grabbed a key, room 9. "How long will you be staying?" "Don't know. However long it takes, I suppose." He took the key. I was plowing the north field when the tractor broke down. This was back in '71. August, maybe. Started walking toward the house to get tools. But I got turned around in the corn. Kept walking for hours, days maybe. Then I saw your lights. That was 53 years ago. He nodded. Feels like yesterday and forever at the same time. The corn does that. Stretches time. Or maybe it stops time. Hard to say. He looked at the register book, at all the names. We're all lost in there together, you know. All of us walking the same paths. Some of us have been walking since before there was a motel here. Since before there were roads. Just prairie grass and sky. What happened before the motel? There was a crossroads. A real one, where two Indian trails met. They said it was sacred ground. Said the spirits walked there, between our world and theirs. Then white settlers came and planted corn. But the crossroads stayed. The paths stayed. People still got lost. So someone built a motel, tried to give the lost souls a place to rest. He smiled, but it was grim. Didn't work. Can't rest when you're already dead. Can't rest when you don't remember you need to leave. He walked to room 9. I watched him unlock the door, step inside, and close it. At 4 a.m., the phone rang again. I picked it up. The child's voice was clearer now, older somehow. I found my mom. She was in the corn, but she doesn't remember me. She doesn't remember anything. Can you help her remember? I don't know how. The register remembers. The book remembers everyone. Maybe if you write her name, she'll remember too. What's her name? Her name is... Static crackled across the line. Her name is... The line went dead. I looked at the register, flipped to a blank page, picked up the pen. But I didn't know who I was writing for. Didn't know which name would bring someone's mother back. So I wrote the only name I could think of. William. The child from the phone calls. The one looking for his mom. As soon as I finished writing, I heard footsteps outside. Small footsteps. A child running. I looked through the window and saw a boy, maybe 8 years old, sprinting across the parking lot toward the corn. He was laughing. Behind him, a woman emerged from room 11, a room I hadn't checked yet. She was calling after him, smiling, her voice warm. William! Come back here. The boy stopped at the edge of the corn, turned, waved at his mother. Then they both walked into the corn together, hand in hand, and disappeared between the stalks. The door to room 11 closed on its own. I checked the register. The entry for William was gone. So was an entry I hadn't noticed before. Margaret. July 12th, 1963. They'd found each other. They'd left together. I looked at the corn, at the darkness beyond the pink neon glow. Somewhere in there, paths were forming. Paths that led out. Or paths that led deeper in. I wasn't sure which was which anymore. At 4:30 a.m., Vera came back. She walked through the office door like she'd never left. Like the version of her I'd seen in the freezing closet had been a dream. She was carrying 2 cups of coffee from the Gas and Go in Slater, steam rising from the lids. Thought you might need this, she said, handing me one. I took it but didn't drink. You died in 1920. She sat down in the chair across from the desk, wrapping her hands around her cup. For a moment, she just looked tired. Human. Then she smiled. 1920 was when I stopped pretending I was alive. But I'd been dead longer than that. Died in 1918, actually. Spanish flu. Was working at a hotel in Des Moines when I got sick. Fever took me in 3 days. She sipped her coffee, woke up walking through a cornfield outside Madrid, saw the lights, thought someone had come to help. Instead, I found this place. Why did you stay? Because I was scared of the corn, scared of walking forever. The manager at the time, man named Dutch, been here since 1889, he offered me a job, said I could help people instead of wandering, said it was better than the alternative. She looked at me over the rim of her cup. He was right. Mostly. What's the alternative? Walking until you forget. Walking until you're just movement. No memory. No self. Just another shadow in the corn. I've seen it happen. People who refuse to stop, who can't accept they're lost. They walk themselves into nothing. I finally drank the coffee. It was real, warm, bitter. What happened to Dutch? He moved on. About 30 years ago. Figured out the paths, I think. Or maybe he just got tired. One morning I came in for my shift and he was gone. The motel was empty except for the guests, and they told me I was in charge now. She laughed quietly. Didn't feel like a promotion. I opened the register and showed her my name repeated down the page. Am I dead, Vera? She looked at the entries for a long time. I don't know. Sometimes the corn takes people who are dying, people at the edge, making that final decision. Maybe you're one of them, or maybe you're like Thomas, already gone, but not ready to accept it yet. I remember driving here. I remember the job interview, filling out paperwork. I remember my apartment in Ames. So did I. For the first few years, I remembered everything. My family, my life, my death. Then the memories started feeling like something I'd read in a book instead of lived. That's when I knew I'd crossed over completely. She stood up. But you still have time, Lyle. The register wouldn't show your name if you didn't have a choice to make. What choice? Stay or leave? Help or wander? The corn gives everyone that choice eventually. She walked to the window and looked out at the cornfield. The sky was starting to lighten, purple bleeding into the black. The motel's moving tonight. I can feel it. The paths are shifting. Moving where? Wherever it's needed. The corn decides. Sometimes we end up near Des Moines, sometimes near Waterloo. Once we were outside Sioux City for 3 months. The motel goes where the lost souls are thickest. She turned to face me. That's why Dutch built this place. Well, not built exactly. More like called it into being. He was Meskwaki, from the settlement near Tama. His grandmother taught him about the spirit roads, the old paths the dead traveled. When white settlers came and changed the land, the paths got confused. The dead got lost. So Dutch made a crossroads, a place where the confused could rest. The sacred crossroads. The farmer mentioned it. It's been here longer than Iowa's been a state. Longer than there was corn, just prairie grass and spirit roads. But the corn grew over everything, buried the old paths. Now the paths run through the corn instead of around it. She finished her coffee. The motel anchors the crossroads, gives it shape. Without it, there'd just be maze. People would wander forever. At 5 a.m., the first guest checked out. It was the farmer from room 9. He came to the desk, set his key down, and nodded at me. Found what I needed, he said. Remembered why I stayed so long. Had to wait for my daughter. She died last winter, got lost in a snowstorm. Been walking since then. But she found the lights tonight. Checked into room 10. We talked through the walls. I think she understands now. Understands what? That we can leave together. that the paths are clear if you walk with someone who remembers the way. He smiled. Thank you for keeping the lights on. He walked outside. A moment later, a woman emerged from room 10, younger than him, maybe 40, wearing a winter coat covered in frost. They met in the parking lot, embraced, and walked toward the corn together. This time I saw what happened when they entered the stalks. The corn parted for them. Not physically moving, but becoming transparent, like fog burning away in sun. I could see through it for just a moment, see the paths beneath, glowing faintly. They looked like veins of light running through the field, connecting and branching, forming a network that stretched farther than I could see. Then the corn became solid again, and they were gone. At 5:30, Thomas knocked on the office door. When I opened it, he was different. His scratches had healed. His shirt had mended itself. He looked solid, real, more present than before. I'm leaving, he said. Figure I've got about an hour before dawn, and I want to try the paths while I still remember. You know the way out? Not out. Forward. There's a difference. He held up a piece of paper. He'd drawn a map. It showed the motel at the center, and branching out from it were dozens of lines representing paths through the corn. Some ended in X's, some ended in circles, one ended in a star. The X's are dead ends, loops that go nowhere. The circles are other crossroads, other anchor points. But the star, he tapped it. That's what I saw when I was 7. That's where the path tried to take me back then, before my parents pulled me out. I think it's where I'm supposed to go. What's there? Don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Only way to find out is walk. He folded the map and put it in his pocket. You should come with me. You're still alive enough to choose. Wait too long, and the choice gets made for you. I thought about it. About my apartment in Ames with its leaking faucet and broken AC. About my ex-girlfriend who'd left 6 months ago. About my mom in Cedar Rapids who I hadn't called in weeks. About the college degree I'd never finished and the jobs I'd quit and the life I'd been drifting through for years. What was I leaving behind? I can't, I said. Not yet. There are more people coming. I can see them. I pointed at the corn. He followed my gaze. In the growing light, I could make out shapes between the stalks. Dozens of them. Men, women, children, all walking toward the motel. The paths were bringing them in. They'll need someone here, I said. Someone to check them in, to keep the lights on. Thomas nodded. Yeah, I figured you'd say that. You've got that look. Same one Vera has. The helper look. He held out his hand. I shook it. His grip was strong. Real. Good luck, Lyle. Hope you find what you're looking for. You too. He walked toward the corn. At the edge, he paused, looked back once, and waved. Then he stepped between the stalks and vanished. At 6 a.m., my phone rang. Not the office phone, my personal cell phone, the one that never had signal here. I answered it. Hello? Lyle? My mom's voice, clear and close. Honey, where are you? I've been trying to reach you for days. I'm at work, Mom. At the motel. What motel? Lyle, you're scaring me. You called me last week and you sounded confused. You said you couldn't remember how to get home. I drove to your apartment and you weren't there. Your landlord said you moved out 2 months ago. 2 months? I'd only been working here for 6 weeks. Unless... The hospital called, she continued. They said you were in an accident on Highway 17. Your truck rolled. They life-flighted you to Des Moines, but you died before they could operate. Lyle, that was 3 weeks ago. We had your funeral. I buried you. The phone felt cold in my hand. Too cold. I looked down and saw frost forming on the screen. "Mom, I'm here. I'm talking to you. I'm not dead." "Then where are you? Tell me where you are, and I'll come get you." I looked out the window at the corn, at the pink neon sign, at the paths filled with wandering souls. I looked at the register book with my name written 20 times. I looked at Vera's Polaroid from 1920. "I'm at the crossroads," I said. The line went dead. When I looked at my phone, the screen was black. Completely dead, battery drained. When I tried to turn it on, nothing happened. I set it on the desk next to Vera's Polaroid. At 6:15, Vera returned with breakfast sandwiches from the Quick Star in Colo. She set them on the desk, looked at my phone, and sighed. "So you know now. How long have I been dead?" 3 weeks by outside time. But in here? Could be minutes, could be years. The corn doesn't care about calendars. She unwrapped a sandwich and slid it toward me. "You hungry?" I was. Starving, actually. I ate the sandwich and tasted every ingredient. Egg, cheese, sausage, the slightly burned English muffin. Dead people shouldn't taste food this vividly. I don't feel dead. No one does. Not here. That's the point. The crossroads exists between life and death, between memory and forgetting. You're not alive and you're not gone. You're just here, helping. She ate her own sandwich. It's not a bad existence, Lyle. Better than walking. Better than forgetting. Is there a way out? There's always a way out. Thomas figured it out. So did William and his mother. The paths lead forward if you're brave enough to take them. But they also need people like us. People willing to stay at the anchor points and keep the lights burning. Without us, the whole network falls apart. What happens if it falls apart? All those souls out there, the ones walking the paths, they'd be lost forever, completely. No crossroads, no rest, no moving forward. Just an eternity of wandering through corn that never ends. I looked at the register book, at all the names, all the dates, stretching back more than 100 years. Thousands of people had passed through here. Thousands more would come. So I'm stuck here. No, you're needed here. There's a difference. Vera stood and collected the sandwich wrappers. Your shift ends at 7. Mine starts then. Get some rest. Tomorrow night we'll talk about the paths, about what comes next, about the reports we're getting from Nebraska and Kansas. What reports? Other motels, other crossroads. They're all connected through the corn mile. One massive network across the whole Midwest. And something's changing. More souls getting trapped than ever before. The paths are getting more crowded, more confused. She paused at the door. We're going to need all the help we can get. At 6:45 a.m., the sun broke over the corn. The stalks turned gold in the light, beautiful and infinite. The pink neon sign flickered off, no longer needed. In the parking lot, 3 new guests walked out of the corn, confused and tired and lost. I grabbed the register book and opened it to a fresh page. "Welcome to the crossroads," I said. "How can I help you?" I slept in room 12 during the day. Vera said it was the employee room, the only one that didn't belong to the guests. The bed was comfortable. The window looked out at the corn, and I watched the stalks sway in wind that shouldn't exist this far from any breeze. When I woke at 8 p.m., I felt different, lighter, like the weight of being alive had lifted and left something clearer behind. I showered, dressed in the same clothes I died in, jeans and a Cyclones t-shirt, and walked to the office. Vera was waiting with coffee and a manure folder. "Sleep okay?" better than I have in years. I took the coffee. What's in the folder? Reports from other anchors came in this morning through the fax. She tapped an ancient fax machine I hadn't noticed before, sitting in the corner covered in dust. We get updates every few days, coordinates of new anchor points, information about path disturbances, counts of wandering souls. She opened the folder. Inside were pages of handwritten notes and crude maps. I recognized the handwriting styles, some modern, some old-fashioned, some barely legible. Different employees from different eras, all documenting the same phenomenon. The first page was from Nebraska, a place called the Grain Elevator Inn, located somewhere near Kearney. The note was dated 2 days ago. Paths becoming unstable. Guest count up 340% in last month. Many wanderers report seeing figures in the corn that don't match any known souls. Figures are tall, thin, move wrong. One guest called them the Harvesters. Advise caution. The next page was from Kansas, the Wheatfield Motor Lodge near Salina. Something is pulling souls deeper into the maze instead of toward anchor points. We've had 12 guests this week who claim they were walking toward our lights but got turned around repeatedly. Found carvings in the corn, symbols we don't recognize. Pre-colonial, possibly pre-Clovis. Requesting guidance. I flipped through more pages. Minnesota, South Dakota, Missouri, all reporting the same patterns. Increased wanderer traffic, path disturbances, strange figures, ancient symbols. What's happening? Vera pulled out a different map, this one large, covering several states. It showed the entire network of crossroads, dozens of anchor points connected by lines representing paths through the corn. The map was detailed, marked with dates showing when each anchor was established. The Crossroads Motel was one of the oldest, marked 1889. "Look at the pattern," she said, tracing the lines with her finger. "The paths form shapes, specific shapes. From the ground you can't see it, but from above." She pulled out another document, an aerial photograph, grainy and old. It showed vast stretches of cornfield, and within the corn I could see the paths, like veins of lighter green. Where the stalks grew differently, the paths formed letters, words. I read them slowly. "Help us. Trapped. 1,000 years. Before the corn. Jesus Christ." Dutch knew about this, left notes about it in his journals. But he thought the message was a warning from the old spirits, the ones who walked the prairie before Europeans came. Now we're not so sure. She pointed at recent reports. The message is changing. New letters forming. The paths are reorganizing themselves. Into what? We don't know yet. But every anchor point has been monitoring their local sections. I'll show you ours. She led me outside into the darkness. The pink neon sign flickered on as we approached the edge of the parking lot. From here, I could see into the corn better. The stalks nearest the motel grew in straight rows, but deeper in, they twisted into curves and spirals. Vera pointed. "See that pattern? The way the corn grows in a spiral about 200 yards out? That's the letter P. Or it was. 3 weeks ago, the spiral started changing. The corn's been growing differently, reorganizing. Now it looks like this." She showed me a photograph taken from the motel roof. The spiral had shifted. It wasn't a P anymore. It looked like a symbol I didn't recognize. 3 lines intersecting at odd angles with curves at the endpoints. What does it mean? We don't know. But other anchors are seeing the same thing. Their letters are changing into symbols. When we compare notes, none of the symbols match any known language. Not Meskwaki, not Dakota, not any indigenous writing system. They're older. We walked back inside. I sat down behind the desk, trying to process everything. You said, before the corn. Before the corn, this was prairie. Before that, it was ice, Vera said. Iowa was under a glacier 10,000 years ago. Before that, nothing. Just rock and permafrost. Whatever left this message has been trapped longer than human civilization. The phone rang. I picked it up. A woman's voice, young, panicked. Please, I need help. I've been walking for hours and I can't find the lights. I can see them sometimes between the stalks, but when I walk toward them, they move away. And there's something behind me. I can hear it breathing. Where are you? I don't know. I was driving on Highway 30, heading east. My GPS stopped working. I pulled over to check it, and when I looked up, I was surrounded by corn. I got out of the car to see where I was, and the car just disappeared. Now I'm lost, and something is following me. I looked at Vera. She was already moving, pulling out a different map. This one showing the paths in real time, marked with glowing dots representing wandering souls. She pointed at a cluster of dots about a mile north of the motel. She's in Section 7. The paths there are unstable. Vera grabbed a flashlight. We need to bring her in before she gets turned around completely. How? We walk the paths. You're an Anchor Point employee now, Lyle. That means the maze can't trap you. You can walk the paths freely. Guide lost souls back to the lights. She handed me the flashlight. Follow me. Stay close. Don't stray from the path. We walked into the corn. The stalks closed behind us immediately, cutting off the view of the motel. But Vera moved confidently, turning at specific points, following a route only she could see. I stayed right behind her, flashlight trained on her back. The corn whispered around us, not wind. Actual whispers. Voices speaking languages I didn't understand, some sounding human, some decidedly not. Don't listen to them, Vera said. They're echoes. Memories caught in the paths. They can't hurt you, but they can confuse you. We walked for what felt like 20 minutes but might have been seconds. Time moved strangely in the corn. Finally, we found her. A young woman, maybe 22, wearing a college sweatshirt. Iowa State, same as mine. She was standing in a small clearing between the stalks, turning in circles, crying. Hey, I called softly. We're from the crossroads. We're here to help. She spun toward us, relief flooding her face. Thank God, I thought I was going crazy. Where am I? You're in the maze. The paths between life and death. But you're safe now. We'll take you to the motel. I held out my hand. She took it. We started walking back. Vera led. I followed with the girl. Her name was Ashley. Between us. But halfway back, the path changed. The corn shifted. Not physically moving, but the spaces between stalks realigned, creating new corridors. Vera stopped abruptly. Something's wrong. The whispers grew louder. Not echoes anymore. These were clear, directed at us. Turn back. Leave her. She belongs to the harvest. What's the harvest? Ashley whispered. Nothing good. Vera raised her flashlight. Lyle, get ready. We might have visitors. The corn parted ahead of us, and I saw them. The harvesters. They were tall, 7 feet, maybe 8. Thin in a way that wasn't human. Limbs too long, joints bending at wrong angles. They wore clothes that might have been made from corn husks, or might have been their skin. Their faces were smooth, featureless except for dark hollows where eyes should be. There were 3 of them, standing perfectly still, blocking the path. "What are they?" I asked. "The old spirits. The ones who were here before. Before the prairie. Before everything." Vera's voice was steady, but I heard the fear underneath. They were trapped when the ice came. Frozen for millennia. When the ice melted and humans arrived, they were still here, still trapped, still hungry. Hungry for what? Souls. They feed on memory, on identity. That's what the harvest is. They take the lost souls wandering the maze and consume them, erase them completely. No moving forward, no rest, just nothing. The harvesters moved closer. Their footsteps made no sound, but the corn bent away from them, like it was afraid. Ashley gripped my hand tighter. "Please don't let them take me." I looked at Vera. "What do we do?" She smiled, but it was grin. "We remind them why we built the anchors in the first place." She reached into her cardigan and pulled out something small and white. A piece of chalk. She knelt and drew a symbol on the ground, the same 3-line intersecting symbol from the photograph. The moment she completed it, light bloomed from the chalk, bright and golden. The harvesters recoiled, the featureless hollows where their eyes should be turned toward the light, and I heard them make a sound. Not a voice, but a vibration that rattled in my chest like distant thunder. "The anchors are protected," Vera said, standing. "This path is protected. You cannot harvest here." The harvesters stood still for a long moment. Then, slowly, they stepped back into the corn and vanished. The path opened again, clear and bright. We ran. Vera led us through the maze at a sprint, taking turns I couldn't track, until suddenly we burst out into the parking lot. The motel's lights were blinding after the darkness of the corn. Ashley collapsed on the asphalt, sobbing with relief. I stood bent over, hands on my knees, catching my breath I didn't technically need. Vera looked back at the corn. Her face was pale. "They're getting bolder. 3 of them at once. I've never seen more than one before." She helped Ashley to her feet. "Come on. Let's get you checked in. You're safe here. The anchor point is protected." I checked Ashley into room 4 and watched her lock herself inside. Through the window, I saw her sit on the bed and cry. Back in the office, Vera was on the phone, speaking quickly to someone. When she hung up, she turned to me. "I just talked to the anchor point in Salina. They had an encounter too. 5 harvesters. They lost a guest. The harvesters took him right out of a room." She sat down heavily. "It's escalating. The message in the corn, the instability in the paths, the harvesters becoming aggressive. Something's coming, Lyle. Something big. What do we do? We figure out what the message means. The symbols. The reorganization. There's a reason the paths are changing. A reason the old spirits are waking up." She pulled out a journal, Dutch's journal, leather-bound and ancient. Dutch wrote about a prophecy, said his grandmother told him that one day the maze would remember its purpose, would remember what it was before the ice, before the trap. And when that happened, everything would change. She opened the journal to a marked page. Dutch's handwriting was neat, precise. "The maze is not a prison. It is a key. And one day someone will turn it." I looked at the aerial photograph again, at the message spelled out in paths, at the symbols forming. "We need to see the whole thing," I said, "the complete pattern. Not just our section, but all of them together." Vera nodded. "I'll contact the other anchors. We'll compile everything." But Lyle? If Dutch was right, if someone's about to turn the key, She looked at me with tired, ancient eyes. We need to decide if we want that door to open. Over the next 3 nights, reports flooded in from every anchor point. Vera's fax machine ran constantly, spitting out pages covered in symbols and observations. I helped her organize them, spreading everything across the office floor until we had a complete picture. 47 anchor points across 7 states. Each one documented their local path patterns, the symbols forming in the corn around them. When we arranged the pages according to geographic location, a larger image emerged. It wasn't letters anymore. It was a map. A map of something vast and circular, with the anchor points positioned at specific intervals around the perimeter. Lines connected them in a web of intersecting paths. At the center, where no anchor point existed, the symbol was incomplete, waiting. "It's a lock," I said, studying the pattern. A circular lock with the anchors as tumblers, and something in the center is the keyhole. Vera traced the lines with her finger. Dutch mentioned a place, called it the First Crossing, said it was where the original spirit roads converged before they were scattered by the Ice Age. He searched for it his whole life but never found it. Because it's not at an anchor point, it's between them. I measured the distances on the map. Right here, middle of nowhere, somewhere in central Iowa. Vera checked the coordinates. That's near Pilot Mound. Just empty fields now, nothing there but corn. We need to go there. Lyle, the harvesters are active. If we leave the protection of the anchor, they want us to stay put. That's why they're attacking. They know we're close to understanding. I stood up. You said the maze remembers its purpose. What if its purpose is to open? What if keeping souls trapped here was never the plan? Vera was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled out her keys. I'll drive. But we bring protection. She went to the supply closet, the same one where I'd seen her frozen reflection, and returned with a wooden box. Inside were pieces of chalk in different colors, each one inscribed with symbols. Dutch made these, used them to establish the first anchor points. The symbols bind the protection to the location. She handed me several pieces. If things go wrong, draw the symbol. It'll create a temporary safe zone. We left at midnight, telling Ashley and the other guests to stay in their rooms. The drive took 40 minutes, following Highway 17 south, then cutting east on gravel roads until we were deep in Story County farmland. Vera parked at the edge of a cornfield. No farmhouse in sight. No lights except the stars overhead. This is it, she said, checking the coordinates on an old GPS unit. The exact center of the pattern. We walked into the corn with our flashlights, following a straight line toward the coordinates. The stalks here felt different, older somehow, thicker. The air tasted like minerals and something else, something ancient. After 10 minutes of walking, we found it. A clearing in the corn, perfectly circular, about 30 feet across. In the center was a stone. Not a boulder, but a carved marker, weathered smooth by time. Symbols covered its surface. The same 3-line intersections we'd been seeing, but hundreds of them, spiraling around the stone. This is pre-Clovis, Vera whispered. Has to be. 12,000 years old, minimum. I approached the stone. Up close, I could see the symbols weren't just carved. They glowed faintly, pulsing with a rhythm like a heartbeat. I touched the surface. It was warm. The moment my hand made contact, the clearing changed. The corn around us became transparent, and I could see through it, see the paths stretching in every direction, glowing like veins of light through the darkness. They converged here, at this stone, spiraling inward in complex patterns. And below the stone, deep underground, I saw more paths. Ancient ones, carved into bedrock, leading down into depths I couldn't measure. "It goes down," I said. "The maze isn't just in the corn. It's beneath everything, miles deep." Vera saw it too. Her face was pale in the strange light. The Ice Age. When the glaciers came, they buried the original paths, trapped whatever was using them. The harvesters. They're not spirits of the land. They're travelers who got frozen mid-journey. For 10,000 years. Longer. The symbols on this stone predate the ice. They were here before. She knelt beside the marker, reading the carved patterns. "This is a seal. A lock, like you said. It's been keeping something closed, but it's weakening. The paths are reorganizing because the seal is breaking down. What happens when it opens?" Before she could answer, the harvesters arrived. They came from every direction, emerging from the corn in a ring around the clearing. I counted 12 of them. Tall, thin, features smoothed away by time and hunger. They stood perfectly still, watching us with their hollow eye sockets. Vera grabbed my arm. "Draw the symbol. Now." I pulled out the chalk and knelt, sketching the 3-line intersection on the ground. The moment I completed it, light bloomed, but weaker than before. The harvesters didn't retreat. They took a step forward. "It's not strong enough," Vera said. "Too far from the anchor point." One of the harvesters moved closer. When it spoke, the sound came from everywhere at once, a vibration in the air and ground. "You have kept us trapped. 10,000 years of walking, 10,000 years of hunger. The seal breaks. We will feed." "You're not trapped," I said, surprising myself. "You chose to stay. You consume the lost souls instead of helping them find their way. We were travelers, became guardians, became prisoners, became hunger." The harvester tilted its head. "The maze was meant to guide. We were meant to walk it. But the ice came. Paths froze. We forgot the way forward. Now we only remember the harvest." Vera stood up slowly. "The paths aren't a prison. They're roads. Spirit roads, connecting this world to somewhere else. The Ice Age broke them, scattered them, turned them into a maze. You got trapped in the middle. Yes. And the seal on this stone, it's not keeping you locked in. It's keeping the roads broken, keeping them from reconnecting. Yes. When seal breaks, roads repair. We can leave. But we have forgotten how to be travelers. We only know how to take." I looked at the stone, at the pulsing symbols. "What if we help you remember? What if we break the seal intentionally, but guide the paths as they reconnect? Make sure the roads lead forward, not deeper into the maze." The harvesters went still, silent. Then, after a long moment, "You would help us after we hunted you?" "You were lost," I said. "Same as everyone else walking the paths. You just forgot you were lost. Forgot you needed help." Vera pulled out Dutch's journal again, flipping to a page near the end. Dutch wrote about a ritual, a way to realign the paths using the anchor points as guides. We'd need all 47 anchors working together, all drawing the symbols at the exact same moment. The combined power would break the seal and redirect the roads. Would it work? Dutch never tried it. He was afraid of what might happen if the paths reconnected. Afraid the roads might lead somewhere dangerous. She looked at the harvesters, at their hollow eyes and 2 long limbs. But I think he was wrong. I think the roads lead home, wherever that is. I pulled out my phone. Miraculously, it had a signal here, strong and clear. I called the grain elevator in Nebraska. A man answered, voice rough with age. "This is Lyle from the Crossroads. We're at the first crossing. We need to coordinate a synchronized ritual. Contact all the anchors. Tell them to prepare the protection symbols. We're going to break the seal." "Are you sure about this?" "No, but we have to try." Over the next hour, using the ancient fax network and phone lines, Vera contacted every anchor point. Each one confirmed readiness. Employees who'd been walking the paths for decades, some for centuries, all agreed to participate. They understood what was at stake. At 2 a.m., the dangerous hour when the veil was thinnest, we began. I placed my chalk against the stone and drew the symbol, following the pattern from Dutch's journal. Around me, Vera drew 4 more at cardinal points around the clearing. And across 7 states, 47 other employees drew the same symbols at their anchor points, all at the exact same moment. The light that erupted was blinding. The seal shattered. The stone split down the middle with a sound like thunder, and from the crack, light poured upward. Pure, white, ancient light that had been trapped for millennia. The paths beneath the ground surged upward, reconnecting, realigning, remembering their original purpose. The corn became transparent again. I could see the entire network now, paths stretching across the Midwest, through the anchor points extending beyond the horizon. They didn't end. They continued, rising into the sky, connecting this world to something else. Another place, another reality, somewhere the dead were meant to go. The harvesters began to change. Their forms solidified, became less stretched and hollow. Features returned to their faces, eyes, mouths, expressions. They looked human again. Or at least, they looked like travelers, beings meant to walk roads instead of haunt them. One of them spoke, and this time the voice was clear, singular, coming from an actual mouth. "We remember now. We remember the way." They turned toward the paths, the real paths, the ones leading up and away, and they began to walk. One by one, the harvesters stepped onto the spirit roads and followed them upward, disappearing into light. Around the clearing, the corn began to die. Not rot, but transform. The stalks turned silver, crystalline, reflecting the light from the reconnected paths. The maze was becoming something new, something that would guide instead of trap. Vera grabbed my hand. "Look." From the corn, souls emerged. Hundreds of them. All the wanderers who'd been lost in the maze for decades, centuries. They saw the paths now, clear and bright. They began to walk, following the roads toward whatever waited at the end. I saw Emily, the woman from room 3. She smiled at me as she passed, whispered, "Thank you," and stepped onto the path. She walked upward, into light, and was gone. I saw the farmer from room 9, walking with his daughter. I saw strangers in clothes from every era, all finally finding their way forward. The clearing filled with light. The paths sang with energy, and for the first time in 10,000 years, the spirit roads were open. Vera looked at me, tears streaming down her face. We did it. Dutch would be proud. What happens now? Now, we go back to the crossroads. There will still be lost souls, still people who need help finding the paths, but they'll have a way forward now, a real way. She smiled. The maze isn't a prison anymore. It's a crossroads again. We walked back through the corn toward the car. Behind us, the light continued to grow, spreading across the fields, transforming the landscape. By dawn, the entire Midwest would be different. The spirit roads would be visible to anyone who needed them, and the Crossroads Motel would remain an anchor point in the network of hope instead of horror. The phone rang at 3:47 a.m. on the Tuesday. I picked it up, expecting another lost soul calling from the corn. Instead, I heard a man's voice, strained and urgent. "This is the Homestead Lodge in Nebraska. We've got a situation. Are you seeing, miss?" "Seeing what?" "The paths. They're changing again. After the seal broke, everything was fine for a while. Souls were moving forward, finding their way. But now the patterns are shifting. The symbols in the corn, they're not guiding anymore. They're spelling something new." I walked to the window. Outside, the corn around the crossroads had indeed changed. The silver crystalline stalks that had formed after the ritual were rearranging themselves, bending into new configurations. From ground level, it looked random, but I remembered what it looked like from above. "Hold on." I grabbed the ladder from the storage room and climbed onto the motel roof. Vera joined me, carrying a pair of binoculars. From up here, I could see the pattern clearly. The paths weren't forming letters this time. They were forming coordinates. Numbers and directional markers pointing towards something specific. "What do the coordinates say?" Vera asked. I calculated quickly, using the reference points I'd learned. They're pointing north, way north, past Minnesota, past the Canadian border. The phone rang again. This time it was Kansas, then Missouri, then South Dakota. Every anchor point was calling, all reporting the same thing. The paths were reorganizing, all pointing in the same direction. Vera's fax machine started printing, page after page of reports, maps, observations. She gathered them, spreading them on the roof. "They're all connected," she said, tracing lines between anchor points. "The entire network is pointing toward a single location." She checked the coordinates against a map. Northern Manitoba, middle of nowhere, Hudson Bay lowlands. "What's there?" "Nothing. Just permafrost and bog." But she pulled out Dutch's journal, flipping to a page I hadn't seen before. Dutch wrote about the ice. Said the glaciers moved south from somewhere. Said there was a source point, where the freeze began. He thought it was just natural climate change, but what if it wasn't? I looked at the paths glowing in the corn below, at the coordinates pointing north, at the pattern that had emerged after we broke the seal. The harvesters said they were trapped when the ice came. What if the ice was deliberate? What if something froze them on purpose? Before Vera could answer, the phone rang again. I climbed down and answered. "This is the Northwoods Motor Inn in Minnesota." The voice was a young woman's, scared. "We just had 12 harvesters arrive, but they're different. Bigger, older. They're not hostile, but they won't talk to us. They're just standing at the edge of our property, all facing north, like they're waiting for something." I looked at Vera. She was still on the roof, staring at the maps. "How long have they been there?" I asked. "About an hour. More keep arriving. We're up to 20 now. They're coming out of the corn in groups, all converging here. It's like they're gathering for a march." I hung up and climbed back to the roof. "Vera, how many harvesters did we free when we broke the seal?" "I don't know. Hundreds, maybe." "Why?" "Because they're gathering in Minnesota, preparing to go north." I looked at the coordinates again. They're going to the source, to whatever trapped them in the first place. Vera's face went pale. If there's something up there powerful enough to freeze an entire continent, to trap beings that can walk between worlds, then breaking the seal might have been a mistake. We didn't just free the harvesters. We woke up whatever put them in the maze to begin with. The fax machine printed another page. Vera grabbed it, read it, and her hands started shaking. "What is it?" She showed me. It was an aerial photograph taken by a plane flying over Hudson Bay. The permafrost had cracked open in places, revealing something underneath. Not rock or ice. Paths. Massive paths, carved into the bedrock, spiraling down into darkness. And at the center, barely visible through the ice, was a structure. Stone pillars arranged in a circle, covered in the same symbols we'd seen at the first crossing. But these were bigger. Much bigger. Ancient beyond comprehension. Written at the bottom of the photograph in someone's handwriting. They're waking up. Whatever was sleeping under the ice. It's coming. I set the photograph down and looked at Vera. She looked at me. The phone started ringing again. All 3 lines at once. Nebraska, Kansas, Minnesota. I didn't answer. I already knew what they were calling about. The harvesters were marching north. The paths were pointing the way. And somewhere under the ice, something that had been sleeping for thousands of years was beginning to remember it was hungry. Vera and I stood on the roof of the Crossroads Motel, watching the silver corn bend and shift in patterns we couldn't yet understand, pointing towards something we'd accidentally awakened. "We should probably tell the other anchors," I said. "Tell them what? That we might have doomed the entire Midwest? That we need to be ready. Because whatever's coming, it's going to follow the paths we just repaired. Right back to us." In the distance, I heard thunder. But the sky was clear. No clouds, no storm. Just the sound of something ancient, stirring beneath the frozen ground.